All right, let's move on to our committee reports, starting with finance. The
Okay.
fun begins. Chair Norton.
Yep, that's right. In agenda item 10.2, which is R 277-479, funding for charter school students with disabilities on an IEP. This was an amendment. The motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve R 277-479, funding for charter school students with disabilities on an IEP, draft 2, on second and final reading.
Any discussion of that motion? Seeing,
Second.
oh, actually, as a committee, it doesn't need it unless it's revised from the committee,
I still second.
but that still helps. That still counts. So, all right, seeing no, and we still have two online now. I believe we've got Member Davis and Member Booth online. So, sorry? And Vice Chair. Yep, okay. So, motion is, as framed by Chair Norton, to approve. I just lost everything here. Let's see. Sorry. Is it up there? There we go. The action is to approve R 277-479, funding for charter school students with disabilities on an IEP, draft 2, on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Yes.
Member Booth.
Yes.
Member Klein.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Earl.
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Member Hymas.
Yes.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Norton.
Yes.
Member Reel. Member Straight.
Yes.
Member Wood.
Yes.
And Member Moss is a yes. Okay, back to you, Chair Norton.
Okay, agenda item 10.3, which is attendance, promotion, and chronic absenteeism prevention. From the committee moves that the board approve R 277-607, attendance promotion and chronic absenteeism prevention, draft 3, on second and final reading.
Okay, discussion to that motion. We do have
I would like to,
amendments in the hopper. We've got, let me just follow my list of lights here. I got Member Hymas, then Klein, then Bogus, then Straight, then Lear. Member Hymas.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm going to try to involve some staff here as well. When we discussed this at the Capitol in February, it wasn't this rule, but it was the code there. I'm wondering, do we need this? What happens if we repeal this rule? Nothing happens. Perfect. I move to repeal. No, you had your 2 seconds and you didn't respond.
Yes, please, just introduce yourself, put your name and title on the record for us.
Perfect. Aspen Florence, Specialist for Attendance and Prevention. So the rule as it stands right now does not match statute and would make it difficult for schools to be able to follow the process and statute according to like their attendance policy and procedure. So that said, as the rule stands right now, that they'd be able to get by, but I believe that it would be difficult for them to stay within alignment without clear guidance from the board.
So you're, Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
you're saying that the rule as is doesn't align with the bill that came forward, and so this is an attempt to align with that. But do we need, are LEAs not taking care of this already? Is this rule really affecting things? Where do parents stand? This is a question I asked at the Capitol, right? Where do parents stand in all of this? And how much do we put on LEAs before we come together as a community and say school's important?
Yeah, that's a great, can I speak to that?
Yes,
again?
please.
Yes, that's a great question, and this really does outline what the school process is to help involve parents, and even in this rule, it says kind of two-way communication with parents to better understand what's happening with parents and things along those lines. I think what you're asking as far as parent involvement and responsibility within this place. That falls into other statutes where it goes into kind of truancy and compulsory education statutes. Within this rule, it does outline tiered system of support for students, which includes a lot of those, the four kind of pillars, you know, of PBIS, like clear expectations, taught expectations, reinforcement, and then those consequences. So that will be outlined in this process as well as we move forward with that. So that is currently a gap as far as how we're outlining that, meaning that this rule would help to further progress our ability to be able to help include parents and families in this process in a more meaningful way.
I see Ben Rasmussen.
Yes,
Ready
Ben
to jump
Rasmussen,
into-
Director of Law and Professional Practices. Thank you, Chair. Other thing to point out is that in HB 400, it does add language directing the board to make rules specific to the chronic absenteeism issues. So if the board were not to take action or were to repeal the rule, we would not be in compliance with the new legislation.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Member Klein.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adopt the draft that I sent to our staff.
So you didn't send a complete draft. You sent some language, and I've got that on our motions doc. But
It has all of the parts for the draft.
Well, that's not I'm just saying we need to, that would be a motion to amend draft 3 to add that language.
Draft
It's
3
new-
is the
it's all new
committee
language.
draft, right?
But, so you're asking to just replace the entire rule with what, that limited language?
Yes.
Okay,
So this is a motion to substitute, or is it a motion to amend?
If you already
Let's see what it
made
looks
the
like.
motion for one of the other drafts, then this would be a motion to substitute.
Point of order, Chair. Can I
Sure.
just, are we being asked to vote on a rule that we have not yet seen yet? Yeah, I used yet more than I should have, but you get my
It's-
point.
It's short, we could
Let's,
read through
Member
it.
Klein, let's just, do we have up there what it is that's being proposed, and then we can see if there's a second? The draft 3 was the committee draft that came out from the recommendation, right? So if there is a motion to substitute something else, let's frame it up, and then we can ask questions and address it. Is this the language that you submitted, Member Klein?
Chair Moss, maybe just ask one more time.
Sure.
Board Member Klein, are you wanting the draft to just be amended to add this, or you only want what you
Just
provided
this.
and nothing else? Meaning
Just this.
everything else from the rule would be stricken?
It's a completely new draft, yes.
Okay, so this would be
it's
the
not.
entire motion that would replace draft 3, is that correct?
Yeah, so I've called it draft
So-
6 there, but you've got the language below.
What I'm looking at, the one I sent in is just barely over a page. So it's got section 1, section 2, section 3.
Is this it? Yeah, let's just see what it is, and then folks can decide if they want to second it, and then we can put it out for debate.
So, I second Member Lear's motion.
I just sent it forward to everyone's email.
Did you send it
Okay.
to our email? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, so do we have up here, Member Klein, is this what you're proposing?
I can't see what's up there.
Right,
I can see what's on my screen, but
We
I
either
can't.
have large type, or we put it in one page and we scroll, so maybe larger type, but scroll slowly for those of us that are
so basically,
tender stomachs.
there's section 1, that is the authorization section. Section 2 is the definitions. There's 3 definitions. And then section 3, promotion of regular attendance, which is, has 2 sub-points or sub-bullets, 1 and 2, with A and B on each.
Okay, I think it's been framed up to your satisfaction. We
So-
do have a second, right? Member Bogus?
Okay?
Oh,
All right,
I didn't
so-
second anything.
Oh, I thought I heard a
I-
second.
Did someone second it?
Okay, she was joking, you can't.
I was seconding Member Lear's motion to make it bigger.
All right,
I made a
you
poorly
can't joke on-
timed joke, sir.
don't joke on the record. All right, do we have a second?
I would second this motion mostly for the purposes of public discourse and debate.
Okay.
Not, after reviewing the,
Let's let Member Klein, if you
Okay,
seconded, let's go back to the
okay,
maker of
I'll-
the motion, and
that's
then you can address it. So Member Klein?
Okay, so as I went back and I looked at the bill that passed, and I looked at what is required in that bill of USBE, of us as a board, Section 3 covers exactly what is in the code, in the new code. So everything else that was in the previous drafts was extraneous to what is in the code. So I simply brought it back to what is actually in the code without all of the extra. Anything else that may have been in a previous draft, or anything else that we may want, or that somebody thinks might need to be covered is already covered in other codes. We don't need to address it here because this rule, as it was written previously, only cited the one piece of code that we are now newly addressing because of HB 400. So the only citation in our previous rule was to that piece of code, and so that's what I went to. We don't need to address anything else in this rule. It's super simple and straightforward, and it makes it so much easier on our LEAs without adding all of these extra requirements.
Okay, thank you. Discuss the motion. Back to Member Bogus, then we've got Member Straight and Lear, and I think a couple online.
so, sir, I would just say that when I read this, that was my conclusion as well, that there is a lot in draft 3, 4, and 5 that is extraneous to what is written in the code. And if we're just stripping it back to what is in the code, this would honor that, and it would alleviate a lot of stuff on our LEA. It would also alleviate responsibility concerns, because the rule, as it was written, did have language concerns, and the staff and I and many board members worked really, really hard to address those. But if it is the board's goal to reduce reporting and to alleviate responsibilities upon our LEA and to genuinely honor local control, this language, I believe, does do that, should the board as a whole choose to go that direction.
Okay, Member Straight.
I'm sitting over here trying to figure out exactly where we're at. So someone said that this is draft 6. I'm confused by that. That means there's several other drafts. Actually, I know the answer, but go
Ben?
ahead.
So I
wanna
called
address
it
that?
draft 6 because there are, drafts 3, 4, and 5 are already on Civic Clerk for the board's consideration. So this would essentially be a new draft, and so I called it 6 on the motion for discussion purposes.
Okay, thank you for that. So, Chair, you may need to help me with this. I would like to make I guess a motion's there. So,
Motion to substitute is on the table, draft
Okay.
6. Drafts 4 and 5 are in backup but have not been brought forward for consideration.
right,
So those are sitting there if somebody wanted to make a motion, but this is what's before us as a substitute.
so I'd like to make a substitute motion then.
We have a substitute actually on the floor. I don't know if we can substitute a substitute. I think we have to take action on this one. And
Okay.
then you could amend this one, but another substitute would not be in order. This one.
So,
How can we bring this back to committee?
how can we bring this back to committee? Because we have I mean, this is really difficult to wade through.
Postpone and refer to committee.
So a
Yes.
motion to
Let-
table and
postpone?
send back to committee, I think can be brought while a motion to substitute, but table or postpone would be in order during a pendency of a motion to substitute. That's what he's talking about. Well, it would be a referral back to committee, as it would be to refer to committee, right, for further action. Sorry.
So
No, I meant Jenny.
I move that we refer to committee all of the drafts that have been submitted, regardless of whether they've been brought forward, for us then to bring this back to the full board in our June meeting.
Second.
And I believe that's in order unless somebody tells me otherwise. We're good on that one, okay. All right, so that has been seconded, and the motion then on the floor is to, hold on, the
Well, I
motion
don't
on the
think it's out
floor.
of order.
You can bring that up. The motion on the floor is to refer back to committee, which is Finance Committee, the pending motion to substitute, which is draft 6, and all other motions that have been placed in backup. Is there a motion, is there a question for
I
point
just
of
think
order?
it might be out of order. It's a substitute to a substitute because it's a completely different,
This is not a substitute, it's procedural motion to refer back to committee. So you cannot substitute a substitute, but you can take a procedural action to refer it back to committee. So that's the proceeding. It wouldn't do anything to the motion itself, just put it back in committee. Any discussion to that motion? Member, let's see, I do have some lights here. I don't know if these were on for the substantive or for something else. Member Lear?
I actually think this might be a good way to go, but there are certainly things in it that I recognize is not consistent with rule writing, and I wouldn't agree to pass it or vote for it as a rule that's fully written. So I think the next best thing would be to take it back to committee and decide if there are some pieces of the original rule having to do with students with disabilities, for one, that I think is important to memorialize in the rule. And then also I'd want to know if this, from the staff perspective, if this does cover, in their expert opinion, covers everything required by the bill. So I would support the motion to take it back to committee, thinking there's some value in looking at this as a starting place.
Okay, Member Carey.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Norman, did you want to speak to that first?
Yeah, if I may. One thing that, for the board's consideration, that LEAs have asked me to bring forward is the fact that they need to have a decision or something made prior. They need to be able to have this in their back-to-school packets for parents to be able to sign. And in doing so, they also need to have that 30 days to bring it before their own board and have it noticed as well. So if it's going back to committee, there might be planting a seed of being able to say what to do that needs to be done now, and then what could be put off till a later time when more in-depth discussion can be had. I wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Working backwards then, when do they need a final answer? Would June be too late? Would
July is usually when they all go out, so they would need to have it before June, so that, because they would need to take it to their own board.
Before June? Okay. So my question is, could we refer it to the committee meeting tomorrow as we have? What time is it? Nope, it's too late. Too late, sorry. We don't have 24 hours.
Sir? Oh, sorry, I did not,
Let-
I apologize.
Deputy Norman, maybe you could just, so you said something August and something June. What's the opportunity here to take it back, and when would we, what, are you saying part now and part later, or?
Yeah, we can have Tanya speak more specifically to it, and I
Tanya,
also don't
okay.
need, yeah, go ahead, Tanya.
Thanks, Tanya.
So,
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Tanya Albornoz, Coordinator for Prevention and Student Services. So we also have to take into account that there's a 60-day public comment period for the rule, right? So if we passed the rule, version 3 to draft 3 today that the committee put forward, then you have to account for the 60-day public comment period until the rule goes into effect. I mean, LEAs can certainly take the language and rewrite their policies, but you have to think, you have to factor that time period into it. So,
All right, so the 60-day period, if, well, just to play out a couple of scenarios, it's too late today to put it in committee tomorrow because we don't have public notice. And so it would have to be June committee meeting and then July, actually, we don't have July board meeting. We could do special session. I'm just playing out the options, not going for one or the other, but just so that we understand the options. We would have to have something back here through a special session and then perhaps a June board meeting. If we did that, would that keep us on track? The 60-day public comment would run through August. Again, not advocating, just playing out the scenarios. Ben, did you, or
So-
either?
If the board approved it in June, it would be published probably on July 1st. With the comment period, you're looking at it going into effect about August 7th.
Wait, I thought 60 days for public comment
If the board approves it at the June meeting.
at the June meeting.
So if you had a special committee meeting before June board, I thought that's what I understood you
Yeah,
suggesting.
right.
So if the board adopted it in June, we could publish it July 1st, and it would be about August 7th that it goes into effect.
So it's 30 days, not 60?
It's not 60, it's 30.
30 days. Okay. All right, Florence, did you,
I was just gonna speak to.
Aspen, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Ms. Florence.
I have two first name. It's not very fair.
Happens.
So
Sorry.
It's okay. Every email I get, No, just speaking to the kind of the simplification of the verbiage and things along those lines. LEAs are asking for more guidance on this, more support on this. I think to your question, it's a huge concern within the LEAs. Currently, even as recently as this morning, we got some survey data back that is from about 200 LEAs that are indicating that their biggest concern right now is guidance on attendance and how to deal with that. And so I'm concerned that stripping back the rule that provides guidance for our LEAs won't be seen as a support. It will be seen as a lack of support for our LEAs, meaning that they're asking for help because they're out of ideas as far as what this looks like, and stripping that back will leave them in a place where they're still kind of floundering for information around this.
all right, thank you. So we do have on the floor then a motion to refer to committee. It's been seconded. Discussion to that motion. We had Member Bogus, Member Carey, and Vice Chair Hart. Or did we already cover yours?
No, sir, I would move to amend the motion.
So the motion is a procedural one to refer to
Mm-hmm.
committee.
Yes.
I don't think you can amend a reference, sorry. Since it's procedural, we
Well,
have
I
to rule on
understand
it.
that it's procedural, but I would love that it would say that that if we're going to entertain this motion, that we postpone and refer our 277-607 to a special finance committee meeting, in so much that the rule could be heard at the June board meeting.
Well, we could probably throw that in as a potential friendly, I don't know, you guys
That
tell
was the
me. I
intent.
haven't had
and I
an
used-
amendment to a
I did use
procedural.
language like that. I
That's what
did
you
talk
had in
about that
mind.
we needed to have it ready by our next board meeting.
By June. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
in fact, if we had it's just so difficult right now to deal with 3 other drafts in addition to draft 3.
yeah, okay.
So, but we could even have a special board meeting and possibly even put some other business in there to where we could really move this along, because I definitely want to respect the time.
Okay, so that's a friendly, that fits then, the motion is to refer it to a special session of Finance Committee, which would allow it to come back to the board meeting in June.
Sir,
So,
may I offer
discussion
another
to that
friendly
motion?
amendment to the maker of the motion?
Sorry?
I would like to offer a friendly amendment, if Mr. Straight would accept it, that we use draft 6 or to direct staff to keep within the confines of code. That extraneous responsibilities put upon our LEAs is something the board does not want. I think that is a fair statement. Maybe it's a generalization. But if we were to instruct them to
Yeah,
pull a draft.
I'm not sure that would be,
We're willing to take everything in, but I don't want to be constricted on where we're headed.
I think,
within
Member
that
Bogus,
discussion.
the committee, or the staff have done their work. The committee is now waiting with 6 drafts. I think the understanding was that would go to the committee, not be bound by anything, but I don't know that we're in a position to direct staff to make the decision about what covers code and what
Okay,
goes
I
beyond
understand.
it. Does that make sense?
Well,
Sometimes we do give direction to staff, but I think in this case, I'm not sure what that would be.
okay, thank
But
you.
what,
Well, I'm hearing the board say a lot of things, and I've met many times with many board members over this rule. And what I hear over and over and over again is we're asking above and beyond for our LEAs to do things. And then I get feedback that, that we want simplicity, we want less reporting, we want all of those things. And maybe I'm just outside the scope and I'm not understanding, but if we're going to bring a draft to a special committee meeting, I would just ask that it be within the confines of what's already in code. And maybe I misunderstand the motion, Member Straight, I'm sorry.
I think that would be up to the committee to decide what's within code. And so what you're saying, I think, would be direction to the committee in a sense, not so much board-approved direction, but just kind of your recommendation to the committee that we keep it within code. Typically, when we do a staff direction, it would be to, give us this data or that, not to sort of interpret and apply. I don't know, staff, am I Am I out of line here? I wa- I
No,
think-
and that is fine. I just want,
it
I
all
just want to
goes
make sure
into
that
that
I'm clear and
process.
that we're clear
Yeah.
on what the board is expecting of the committee.
Yeah, so I think the committee would go back. We have now 6 drafts in that process that the committee could consider, including Member Klein's drafts 5 and 6, and draft 3 that was the initial committee recommended. Is that, okay, so that's on the floor, but, Member Carey.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I support the motion to send this back to committee, but I also wanted just to take the time to thank Deputy Superintendent Norman and Director Rasmussen and the staff assigned to this matter. I have sent a lot of emails, requested a lot of meetings because I really sought to understand this. And it was a very abbreviated timeline, and now I understand why. And I just wanted to say thank you for that effort, and it was recognized and appreciated. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hart.
So, I've had to submit attendance plans for a number of years. Can you, why is there a sense of urgency when we've already had to do attendance plans and have them submitted and have them approved and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you look at the original rule that's in there, it does indicate a lot of what we're even talking about today that was originally in the rule to begin with. And so that's where those pieces are coming from. The
Okay.
small shifts in it are just coming out of the legislation now. So really, the rule was amended very, very minimally
Okay.
to be in alignment with.
So that
HB
rule
400.
exists now, so a delay does not change that underlying rule. So what is the sense of urgency to have the minimal changes done by June?
There are new pieces that we need to add to those plans, specifically HB 400 contained directives on the chronic absenteeism piece, for example. So there are new things that need to go into those plans, and it would be good to have those in place for the new school year.
Okay. Is there another place, follow-up, Chair? Sure. Is there another place that we are addressing chronic absenteeism? Because I know that that isn't something that's new to districts, to LEAs. Where else is that addressed? Because it's not a new concept. So there's some overlap here, and I feel like there's a sense of urgency over something that may not be that different and may be duplicated in code. And in addition, members, I think we're heading for a July meeting, just FYI. But could you tell me where that overlap is? Because I really feel like I'm not understanding the sense of urgency.
So if I may, Chair?
Yes, please.
So my understanding is, like you say, this is not a new concept. There's been a lot of work on this. There's been data reporting on chronic absenteeism in the past.
Sure.
But it's never been in rule before. And there are new legislative requirements that LEAs address some things in policy, and specifically that the board tell LEAs to address those in rule to address their policies.
And just one more follow-up.
Sure.
There's no other agency waiting for this data. It's simply how we address it in the LEA, how we identify and address it in the LEA, a chronic absenteeism problem, correct?
I
Or
believe so, yes.
okay. And do we expect chronic absenteeism to appear in September?
Can you clarify that question?
Well, what I'm saying is I think we have more time than we really, we think we do. And I don't want a rule on top of a rule on top of a rule when we already have a basic structure and we already have some of those things identified. Now, if some other agency like juvenile justice, DCFS that's what they call it here, right? Yeah. Are looking and needing that information in order to do and fulfill their statutory responsibilities, then that's a different matter. But if it's internal to the LEA, I know that there are attendance policies that SECs have looked at. that are required to go out to parents. And I'm wanting to make sure that we have a sense of urgency about things that truly have a sense of urgency, and we do other things deliberately in order to do them right. So,
Yeah, can I speak to that?
Please, yes.
So I think to your question of do we expect chronic absenteeism to be a September issue? Actually, the research suggests yes. So that if a student misses first 2 days in that first month of school, that's a huge red flag for students' attendance throughout the rest of the
the
year.
first 2 days of school for the year?
2 days in the first month of the school year is a huge red flag. And another big part of attendance promotion is the school being able to promote the importance of attendance and be able to address parent concerns prior to school starting around those pieces.
Okay.
So those are both kind of preventative indicators that we're hoping to be
Okay.
able to help support LEAs with, so that we're not hitting
Okay.
January and going, oh, now we have
Okay.
all these kids that aren't attending.
Is there anything precluding you from doing that without the change in rule right now?
As the rule stands right now, it does allow for us to be
Okay.
able to promote attendance. I will say, the piece in the rule that's a big shift is right now the rule only talks about absenteeism and truancy. It doesn't actually talk about attendance, and so there's no positive promotion of attendance, which is again, we have about 50% of our students that
Right.
are not regular attenders right now. It's a tier 1 issue, and so being able to promote attendance rather than just a truancy or compulsory education, things along those lines.
So the 8 is enough, or 8 is too many campaign did not come from USBE?
That comes from Attendance Works, actually, so
Attendance
that's where
Works?
that's
And
coming
are
from.
we working with Attendance Works?
Absolutely, yeah.
So we've got some of those initiatives in place already?
We're working towards
Okay,
those. Yep.
okay, thank you.
Chair Norton.
I'm just going to ask a clarifying question. So is there anything in this motion that would not allow us to, call upon the board drafts that have already been submitted, the expertise of our principals that are sitting here around the table? I mean, if we're going to go back and meet, is everything in play, or is it just draft 6?
My understanding would be everything's in place unless somebody sees differently. Yeah, this is not to approve or adopt or, this replaces the substitute, sends it back with everything that's currently in the hopper. Member Davis, I believe, is online with a question.
I just wanted to make a note. I worked on this for some time too, and I appreciate Member Bogus trying to add clarity, because there was really a confusion between what was the LEA responsibility and what was school responsibility individually. I think we did clarify a lot of that. I checked in with staff earlier because so many drafts have come and gone, and I heard that they supported draft 4 of this and felt like it met the most needs of where we're trying to go with code and with the attendance initiatives. So I just want people to keep that in mind if it does go back to committee, but if it doesn't pass, I would advocate for draft 4.
So just a
Okay,
point of
hold-
clarification.
Yeah, Member Bogus.
The only substantive is, whatever, that word. Yes, difference between draft 4 and draft 5 is section 3 is reorganized. That's the only fundamental difference.
All right, let's leave that for committee unless somebody wants to address a particular
Okay.
difference. I think the motion pending is to refer all of that with differences and changes and whatnot back to committee. Any discussion to that motion? Okay. Well, let's vote. The motion then is that the board postpone and refer R 277-607 to a special finance committee meeting prior to the June board meeting. Let's start at the bottom with Member Wood,
Yes.
Member Straight,
Yes.
Member Reel. Yes. Member Norton,
Yes.
Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Hymus.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Member Green. Yes. Vice Chair Earl.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Klein.
No.
Member Booth.
Yes, sir.
And Member Bogus.
Yes.
My vote was a yes.
Did I skip you?
No,
That
I
is-
didn't turn on my mic.
Okay, that vote passes. It is referred back to you, Chair Norton.
Okay, agenda item 10.4, state fiscal year 2024 for approval. Action from the committee was, the motion for the board, excuse me. How about this? Motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve the 2024 state fiscal year budget subject to amendments.
Any discussion on that motion? Member Bogus, is that for this or for somewhere else? Okay, no worries. We'll start with you anyway. With no lights on, please vote. Member Bogus.
Yes, that was the purpose of my light.
There you go. Member Booth. Member Booth
Yes.
is a yes. Member Klein.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Earl.
Yes.
Member Green. Yes. Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Member Hymus.
Yes.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Norton.
Yes.
Member Reel.
Yes.
Member Straight.
Yes.
Member Wood.
Yes.
And Member Moss is a yes. That passes. Back to you, Chair Norton.
Okay, agenda item 10.6, R277489. 10.5 was listed as an action item, but in fact, it was an informational item. The board did not take any action on that. Okay. 10.6 is R277-489, kindergarten programs and assessment. The motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve R277-489, kindergarten programs and assessment draft 1 on second and final reading.
Any discussion of that motion? Seeing no lights, board members, please vote. Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Straight?
Yes.
Member Reel?
Yes.
Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Lear?
Yes.
Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Hymus?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart?
Yes.
Member Green? Yes. Vice Chair Earl?
Yes.
Member Davis? Member Davis? Come back. Member Klein?
No.
Member Booth?
Yes.
Member Bogus?
I'm a no, but I just want to be clear that it's about the assessment.
Okay. Member Davis, are you with us?
I'm a yes.
Okay,
Yes,
and
sorry, yes. I couldn't, my screen is finicky today.
gotcha. All right, we've got your vote. Member Moss is a yes. That passes. Back to Member Chair Norton.
Okay, item 10.7, the school fees. This actually has two motions for the board. The first motion is that the committee moves that the board approve R277-407, school fees draft 1 on second and final reading.
Any discussion of that motion? If not,
I
I'm sorry,
do.
Vice Chair Earl.
I apologize, I didn't do a deep dive into this, but there was some concerns over some audits that have come up. I don't know if anyone can speak to that, if that impacts what is being stricken from, is by chance.
So I think
Scott or
Deputy
Debbie?
Jones, yes.
I just
if
want to
you're-
make sure that we're not actually removing something that we've been auditing, that we're having auditing problems from our district. And I just didn't have time, I received that email yesterday, I didn't have time to do the deeper dive on this, I did a quick look. I don't know if you can speak to that, Deputy?
Chair, if I may.
Please.
Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. The answer is, through you, Chair Moss, to Vice Chair Earl, is no. We don't see any, so we're planning on making sure that the external audits are presented to Audit Committee next week. There was the question about should we look at this rule, which we appreciate that, or relook at this rule. And my answer or my recommendation is no, let the rule go through as it is. If for some reason later on there is but we don't see a correlation that we would anticipate any further findings or things in the future if this rule goes through as it is right now.
Perfect.
So,
I just, like I said, I wasn't able to do a deep enough dive on it,
No.
and I just didn't want us to strike something that needed to be there because of compliance issues. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
And I can
Okay.
explain more in audit committee next
Okay,
week.
no problem. I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted to make sure we didn't need to hold that, so thank you.
No, I recommend we go through with it.
Okay.
Thank
ma'am.
you, Deputy Jones, and thank you for those who brought that to our attention yesterday. A very timely raising of a good question, and thank you, Deputy Jones, for answering. Oh, Member Davis, are you on this? Okay. Is this electronic hand or, okay. Okay,
I lowered my hand, sorry.
gotcha, okay. All right, so the motion is pending to approve R277-407. Is that correct, Chair Norton?
Correct.
I get that one? Okay, so seeing no lights, Member Bogus,
Yes.
Member Booth,
Yes.
Member Klein,
Yes.
Member Davis,
No,
Vice Chair Earl,
Yes?
Member Green. Yes. Vice Chair Hart,
Yes.
Member Hymus,
Yes.
Member Carey,
Yes.
Member Lear,
Yes.
Member Norton,
Yes.
Member Reel. Yes. Member Straight,
Yes.
Member Wood,
Yes.
and Member Moss is a yes. That passes.
'Kay.
Back to you, Chair Norton.
The second motion pertaining to this rule is that the committee moves that the board directs staff to work with the legislature to amend school fees provisions, including amendments to the definition of fee, not to include revenue raised through fundraisers, and invite JLC to advocate for the legislative change.
Okay, we've got a light from Vice Chair Earl.
I'm just not understanding the idea that we're inviting an outside entity, we're giving them recommendations on what to do. The rest of it I'm fine with. Where's the motion? And I guess I would strike, I'd make a motion to strike and invite JLC to advocate for the legislative change.
I would second that.
Seconded and thirded. Any discussion?
Well, just the comment, that just seems so out of ordinary. Any of us could go to them and ask them to advocate it for it. To put it in an actual motion that we want an outside entity, we could do half a dozen people that are entities that we want to advocate, but that's their prerogative. I just don't think that's something we should be in the business of doing.
Okay, discussion, Member Klein? Are you on?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Member Lear, I've got lights from,
I
see.
I personally don't have a problem with that. I think maybe any problem I might have is in the language. Because I think that JLC has been the forefront of these fee discussions, and I would like to be shoulder to shoulder with JLC. Not everyone feels that way, but I would, and I would support this motion in interpreting invite or reading invite in the broadest way, in that I would like to work with JLC in a legislative change.
I did.
Okay, so the motion is to strike the language and invite JLC to advocate for the legislative change. Any further discussion? Oh, Chair Hart, you're back, sorry.
I invite a lot of people to advocate with us for what we want, and I extend that invitation to every single group that can speak. I'm just worried about the precedent. Is there a position that we don't advocate JLC to advocate with us? I don't know. I don't particularly think it needs to be, now, if you're directing leadership to do something in particular, fine, but why would we just say JLC then? Why wouldn't we say any number of I'm worried about the precedent. I think it's stated like I just don't think we need it. I think it's extraneous.
Okay, Member Carey?
I just have a question for the maker of the motion. Just, is there anything that prohibits JLC from getting involved and advocating if the language wasn't included?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Can I comment
Chair
on
Norton,
this?
yes.
Okay. This was brought up simply because JLC is not just any entity. They are also a public education entity, and USBE and JLC have been working together on a number of things for many years. And this is one that we continue to try to, get through the legislature. And it was just, it was made in our committee to, just reinforce that as teammates, that it's important that we get our language aligned and it was kind of us trying to lead out on this rather than being get in line with JLC.
Thank you, Chair Norton. Okay, I don't see anything further, and I was fine as a member of finance with this. I'm fine dropping it just as it is a little bit precedentially, sets a precedent. I think the sense there is that we would hope to work with JLC, so as a finance committee member, I'm fine pulling it out so that it doesn't become a question of whether we did or did not invite on other occasions, but I think the sense is there that we hope to work with JLC. So I'm in support of the motion, but also in support of working with JLC. Any further comments? Okay, let's vote. Member Wood.
Yes.
Member Straight.
So we're voting on the crossed out language.
We're voting to cross out the language, correct?
No.
Inviting. Member Reel. Member Norton.
No.
Member Lear.
No.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Hymus.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Vice Chair Earl.
Yes.
Member Davis.
No.
Member Klein.
Yes.
Member Booth.
No.
Member Bogus.
Yes.
And Chair Moss is a yes. Passes 9 in favor, so that language is stricken.
So now we vote on the motion.
And we need to go back to the motion as amended, correct? So the motion is that the board directs staff to, let's see. Yes, just the second part there, right? That the board directs staff to work with the legislature to amend school fees provisions, including amendments to the definition of fee, not to include revenue raised through fundraisers. Any further discussion to that motion? If not, okay, let's go back to the bottom. I don't remember where we started anymore. Member Wood.
Yes.
Member Straight.
Yes.
Member Reel. Yes. Member Norton.
Yes.
Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Hymus.
Yes.
Member Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Member Green. Vice Chair Earl.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Klein.
Yes.
Member Booth.
Yes.
Member Bogus.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes. Back to you, Chair Norton. That may be the end of the
That
action
is.
items.
Yep, the rest of them are information.
Okay, thank you, Finance.